Hello everyone, and welcome to a game called Mycorrhiza. This is a creepy visual novel game that I found, and it looks really interesting, like all my games do. And I'm gonna play it right here, right now. I'm gonna go on my left and start with this first door here, and see what the game is all about. Ooh, I already like. It's giving me like some Junji Eto vibes, and I already like that. Act 1, Pets. My eyes were burning. It felt like hot coals were lying on my eyelids. I slowly opened them in an attempt to heave myself from the cold asphalt, but I failed. My whole body was heavy, and my heart felt like it was being squashed hydraulic by a hydraulic press. After a few attempts, I finally succeeded and tried to make out where I was. The fog in my mind lifted slowly, and I realized that I was in a dark alleyway. My vision was still blurry, and I had trouble keeping my eyes open, but I could tell that I had never seen this place before. Slowly, my heart began to race. Was I abducted? Mugged? What had happened to me? I hastily checked my body, fortunately finding no wounds. Why was I feeling this weak then? Maybe I was drugged. As I tried to recall what might have happened to me, my eyes finally focused and I could see the house in front of me. In fact, it was the only house on the street with its lights on. The dirty yellow glow shone through every single visible window. I felt some relief knowing that the tenants were awake. Perhaps they could tell me where I was. I approached the front door. It took me some searching to find the doorbell through the overgrown ivy. A deep gong rang out from within the house when I pressed it. The sound, amplified by the cold wind cutting through my shirt, made me tense up. What an odd choice for a doorbell sound, I thought, while rubbing my upper arms to warm myself. I waited. No one answered. My mind twisted in confusion. Why was no one coming? I rang the doorbell again. Then I tried knocking. No response. No one was coming. I didn't understand. Did they forget to turn off the lights and go on a vacation? As a last resort, I had tried turning the doorknob in. It actually opened. This worried me. Did something happen to the family living here? Perhaps I should find the phone and call the police. Suddenly a loud crash echoed through the street. My heart started to pound as my body tensed up. I wanted to dash into the house, but my feet refused to move. What was that sound? Was someone out there? Pictures of otherworldly monsters and armed kidnappers popped into my mind as my eyes scanned the darkness. The world was silent once more. I was still on the edge, but my body slowly started to relax as I regained my composure. I decided I didn't want to find out what that was. Cautiously, I stepped through the threshold and firmly closed the doors behind me. I felt an immediate lurch of guilt, since I was trespassing into a stranger's home, but I'd rather face the police questioning than wander around a strange neighborhood in the middle of the night. Hello? Is anyone there? No answer? The house was eerily quiet. I cautiously ventured further down the front hall. Perhaps I could find a telephone. I stopped in front of one of the doors. A dim, yellow light seeped through the bottom crack. I turned the knob. Locked. And the next one, also locked. They all seemed to be. I frowned. Why were the lights behind these locked doors lit? It gave me an uneasy feeling. The door at the very end of the hall was the only one that I hadn't tried yet. I grasped its handle and turned it slowly. It swung open to complete darkness. Once again, my body tensed up, while my mind started to conjure horrific images. A beast with a dislocated limbs and crooked teeth creeping towards me from the darkness. A floor littered with corpses and walls stained with blood. A giant spider sitting in the corner, waiting for its chance to strike. My hand shook as I reached to flick on the light. It's nothing. I bet it's nothing. Ha! It was an utterly ordinary bedroom. My heartbeat slowly calmed down as I realized that I seemed to be asleep. I felt almost silly, getting scared of nothing. A quick search yielded nothing but barren, dusty shelves. The bed was the only meaningful object present. Slowly but surely, a wave of fatigue washed over me. With my adrenaline rush fading away, I found that I was more exhausted than I had realized. Like a worm worming its way into an apple, a single thought slowly invaded my mind. I had to sleep. Trying to fight it made it worse, as if some outside power was affecting me. Sleeping in a stranger's bed, in a stranger's home, was the last thing I wanted to do right now. But it was soon the only thing I could think of as my consciousness faded. I had to sleep. The world turned dark, and the soft covers of the bed pulled me deeper and deeper into the black abyss. I shot awake, panting heavily. My clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. I couldn't remember it anymore. But it must have been horrifying. Chills were still running down my spine. It was just a dream. Just a nightmare. Nothing more. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. But I was more confident that I'd be able to find help now that it was in the daytime. I left the bedroom to retry the doors just in case. They were still locked. I just wanted to go home and take a shower. I smelled my clothes, and they indeed had started to smell slightly sour. This place seemed to have nothing left to offer. I had better be out in the streets now. That was day. Even if I was still missing my wallet. I left the house for our bright sunlight. The back streets didn't seem so bad anymore. I found it to be rather cozy and quaint. I made my way down the path until I heard the faint sound of a conversation in the distance. A weight lifted from my heart when I first glimpsed people walking around the pedestrian area. There weren't too many of them, though, and as I looked around, I got the feeling that it was a rather small town. Trees and flowers were planted at regular intervals, which gave it more of a rural atmosphere. It didn't matter. I could finally ask for help. "Excuse me, could you tell me where I am?" The woman blinked at my approach. She frowned and scowled in my general direction. "This is Kajamite." She looked uncomfortable talking to me, so I thanked her and let her be. Kajamite. I had never heard of a town like that before. How did I end up here? The thought of being somewhere I didn't recognize scared me. How was I supposed to get back home if I didn't have the slightest idea where to go? I took a deep breath to calm myself down. My next best bet would be to ask someone to allow me to make a call from their mobile phone. I approached an older man in a business suit. "Excuse me, may I use your phone? I'm a bit lost, and I'd like to call a friend of mine so he can pick me up." His lips curled into a grimacing frown. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a hurry." I approached person after person, but I had no luck. No one wanted to lend an unkempt, half-dressed stranger their phone. As I made my way through a side street, I overheard two elderly women. I heard of some violent incidents recently. Most got away with just a flesh wound, saying that they were attacked by someone or something. Yeah, I heard that too. I wonder if it had anything to do with the pet disappearances. I heard of another cat that hadn't came back in several days. I was so focused on the conversation that I almost ran into a girl. I mumbled an apology until I realized that she had approached me on purpose. Hi. Do you need to call someone, right?" She extended her hand and offered me her phone. "How did you... People have been talking about you. We've had some violent crimes here recently. Everyone is a little on edge. Many pets have been getting sick. Some say someone has been poisoning them." She nervously shuffled her feet and glanced away. "Thank you. I won't take long." I took her phone. It was a red flip phone with a small panda hanging from a strap. The top bar read, "May's phone." Her background was set to a side view picture of herself in a pedestrian area that looked oddly familiar. It struck me as a bit odd that she was using a picture of herself. But who was I to judge? I brushed that thought aside and dialed a friend's number. But the call didn't go through. I tried it again, but the results were the same. Maybe his phone was turned off. I tried my parents' house, then my job's front desk, then my boss's personal cell. Each time the call failed. I was sure that I had the right numbers. Maybe the phone had a bad connection. It seems like the calls won't connect for some reason. Maybe you'll have more luck trying a landline. My phone does act up sometimes. You might be right. Still, thank you a lot. I didn't want to hold her up any longer, so I gave her her phone back and wandered off with a rushed farewell. Leaving that way may have been a bit rude, but I was too frustrated to care. I just wanted to look for another way to get in contact with someone I knew. It occurred to me that I should have asked her for directions to the police station. I turned to look for her, but she had already vanished. As I made my way through the town, I could now definitely feel the tension in the air. She was right. Everyone was on edge. While I was passing by an alleyway, something caught my eye. They were too big to be rats. I couldn't really make anything out other than the eerie glowing eyes. Maybe it was the cat gang searching for the trash for food. I don't think cats have eyes that big, buddy. Aropos food? I was starving. But I couldn't possibly just ask random people to feed me since my wallet was missing. I didn't have any money on me to buy something else. Though there was an oddly tempting looking plants growing nearby. As I stared at them, I felt a pull. The strange appearance hypnotized me, and without me noticing, my feet inched closer and closer and closer. I have a bad feeling about that. Oh, I have a bad feeling about that. It seems like my my, oh, this is cool, because my mouse automatically goes up to eat them. I'm battling it out with them. Come on, don't do it, man. What was I thinking? Haha, I bested thee. It didn't matter how hungry I was. They may be poisonous. But my hunger was beginning to gnaw my insides. But my hunger was beginning to gnaw at my insides. My vision grew blurry. Who knew how long it's been since I've eaten? Suddenly I collapsed and the world around me vanished. It was dark when I awoke. It seemed like no one had bothered to help me. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. My whole body was paralyzed from hunger. Something was shuffling by my ear. I felt the sniveling of an animal, perhaps one of those cats I saw earlier. I couldn't bring myself to look. It lost interest and walked past me towards the plants. I heard more far low. As they padded into view, I noticed that something was off about them. It must have been my mind playing tricks on me. My hunger was overwhelming. Something about their bodies was wrong. They started to eat the plants. They were smacking rather loudly and made unnatural fleshy sounds. Every now and then, one would pause and give off a low growl that didn't even at all sound like a cat, more like a slightly higher pitch bear growl. After a while, the sounds diminished, and I felt their presence vanish. I gathered my strength and forced myself to my feet. What had just happened? What were those creatures? The violent crimes I've heard about out earlier popped into my mind. My hands began to shake slightly. What would have happened if I hadn't been paralyzed, if they had noticed that I was still alive? Most house lights were still lit. I mustn't have been out for long. Once again, my body gave off a deep growl. It was as if my stomach was eating itself. I had to get some food, or else I was in danger of collapsing again. Being as desperate as I was, I approached the next best house and knocked. I was surprised when the door actually opened. "Hi there, come on in. How nice of you to visit." Before me stood a fashionably dressed woman with a big smile on her face. At first glance, she seemed welcoming, but her movements were rather stiff and almost mechanical, as if they'd been practicing it over and over again. The hat and scarf and bag around her shoulders suggested that she was just about to leave. "Oh, the bag. Don't worry about it. I just think it suits me, so I've gotten used to wearing it around the house." Seems like she had noticed my confused look. It seemed unpractical to dress like this at home, but I guess she was very conscious about her appearance. "Now come in. Everyone's already inside. Do we know each other?" Yeah, she took another, more thorough look at me, and seemed to realize that we, in fact, do not know each other. "Ah, you must be a new neighbor then. I'm Sabrina. Come in." She disappeared before I could correct her. I hesitantly followed her inside. On my way in, I saw a food bowl near the entrance with some of the strange-looking plants in it. Huh? She'd been feeding those to her pet? I peeked after Sabrina into the living room. A man leapt to his feet as he saw me and stretched his hand out to me. His coat suggested that he was active in the medical or scientific field, and that he had maybe gotten here right after work. His other arm hung down limply. "Hi there, it's nice to meet you. I'm Frederick. How are you doing?" I reciprocate his firm handshake, and he cheerfully gestured me to take a seat beside him. To my surprise, the girl who helped me earlier was here as well. I believed her name was May. She gave me a small wave. It's starting to feel like a festivity, you know. We should have neighborhood get-togethers like these more often. Oh, right. This is... She turned and frowned in my direction, while trying to remember a name she hadn't asked me for. Scott. I'm Scott. Right. Scott. He moved in nearby recently, I think, so I thought we should invite him in as well. Certainly. It's nice to see you. No, I'm not really... Oh, right. Food. Give me a second. She rushed into the kitchen and came out with steaming dishes of food. I could make out different kinds of meat, baked potatoes, and more. My stomach gave off a deep growl and my mouth began to water. Any thought of honesty about my origin was gone. The other visitors started piling food onto their plates, and I followed suit. As I devoured it and life came back to my body, I let my eyes wander over to the others. Everyone seemed to be rather tense, especially Sabrina and Frederick. Their movements were rather stiff. Every now and then, they threw glances each other's way, glances that seemed to indicate mistrust. Sabrina seemed to especially be eyeing the cup that Frederick was drinking out of. Every now and then, when they noticed each other's looks, they'd put on a fake smile. May seemed like she hadn't planned on being in here in the first place. She was just dragged into it, just like I was. As I was cleaning my plate of its scraps, something important flashed into my mind. "Excuse me, would you mind if I use your phone?" Sabrina tissed. "I'm afraid I don't have one. Never cared for those buggers." She looked over at Frederick. "Maybe he can use yours?" "Of course! I can show you to my house once we're all ready to go." I gave off a sigh of relief and thanked Frederick. He waved his hand in the air. "No problem at all. Please excuse me for a moment, though." He shuffled out of the room, presumably towards the bathroom. "All right, I'll make some more tea." She scooped up Frederick's cup and left me alone with May. I cleared my throat and nodded in her direction. "Thank you again for lending me your phone. I did appreciate that." "You're welcome. I hope you will have more luck with the landline." "Yeah, I hope so too." And I guess that was the end of the conversation. Perhaps she felt uncomfortable speaking to a weird-smelling stranger. "I'm going to wash my dishes." And there she went. The other two were taking quite a while. I used the opportunity to let my eyes wander around the room, and the walls were dressed with paintings of all kinds, pictures of nature, as well as more abstract drawings. A fancy-looking framed piece of paper, and a photograph that was standing on the drawer beneath them caught my eye. The former seemed to be an art degree with a ladder, a picture of Frederick and Sabrina when they were younger. They were standing somewhere that could be the university campus. Both had a genuine smile on their face. It seemed like their friendship went back quite a bit. Hey. Whoa. Did she sneak up behind me? I thought I had a clear view of the kitchen entrance. I think I heard some rumbling coming from downstairs. It'll probably be good if you check it out, in case Sabrina hurt herself. Oh, well, she has been gone for quite a while. Maybe something did happen to her. Perhaps I should take a look. I felt May's eyes follow me to the basement. I squinted down the stairs. It was almost pitch black. Oh, this is a trap, isn't it? I swallowed back my nerves and carefully crept down the stairs. Maybe I should have called out to Sabrina, but something told me not to. I managed to reach the bottom stair and peeked around the corner. There I saw her kneeling by lamplight in front of a large cage. A basket of strange plants sat beside her. There, it's alright. Take a good sniff of the cup. We need to hurry, okay? I know that he's growing one too. Everyone is. Everyone wants to get rid of the competition. We need to hurry. She held Frederick's cup to the bars. Something in her voice disturbed me. Whatever was going on, I wanted no part of it. I returned to the living room as quietly as I could. Ah, there you are, all ready to go? Upon hearing Frederick's loud voice, I jumped. What I had seen in the basement made me a bit anxious. I took a quick look around and saw that May was already gone. Sure, I'm ready. Leaving already? I just made more tea. I turned to see Sabrina standing in the living room entrance with a put-on smile. Ah, sorry dear, I'm just not young enough to stay out late like we used to. She put on a playful pout. Oh, you do wound me. Come by again. You know you're welcome any time. We bid our farewells and set out into the cold night. I was glad to leave. What I had seen was still nagging on my mind. Frederick might be in danger. I had to tell him. I hesitated. How was I supposed to tell him when I myself wasn't sure what I had seen? But I collected myself and went for it. To my surprise, he wasn't nearly as upset at Sabrina as I thought he would be. He actually seemed to be more upset at me. I think you should not have snooped around in someone's house who invited you over. I was left perplexed. What just happened? I thought I was warning him, but instead I was being scolded like a child. His face relaxed and he gave me his usual smile. It seemed slightly pained this time. I suppose there's been no harm done. Perhaps he just didn't believe me. I couldn't blame him. I noticed more and more vacant houses as we crept through the town. Some were boarded up. Doors had been left wide open. Why are there so many empty houses here? These houses have been vacant for a while now. You need not worry. I was sure that I had passed by here earlier, but I didn't notice any abandoned buildings back then. They couldn't have left so suddenly in just half a day, could they? An uneasy feeling started to fester inside me. Here we are. We stopped before a house that looked much like every other house in this town. He stepped aside. I hesitated at the entrance before trailing behind him. Come on in. No need to be shy. Do you want something to drink? No, thanks. Frederick hesitantly grunted and led me down the hallway. I only wanted to use the phone and get out. All the weirdness of the day had me on edge. But what if I still couldn't reach anyone? Where would they go? I was balancing a fine line between hope and despair, and the phone call would probably be what would topple me into either direction. Alright, here you are. The phone had a cord attached to the receiver, but seemed rather old-fashioned. But at least it had buttons instead of a rotary dial. I picked up the receiver and tried a number. Am I doing something wrong? There's no dial tone. Huh? Let me see. He took the receiver from my hand and pressed a few buttons. He let out a disappointed sigh. Not again. Those damn rodents keep getting it to my cables. I'll go take a look at it. Feel free to make yourself at home. Ah, in case you get thirsty. He fetched a small bottle of soda from the kitchen, gave it to me, and went into the basement. Quit trying to make me drink shit, man. It's like you're trying to drug me. It seemed like I wouldn't be able to leave quite so soon. Once I held a drink in my hand, I did start to get thirsty. I took a sip and thought about what to do next. Well, he got mad about snooping around. But maybe it's not snooping. What should I check out? Check the pictures. I took a look at the pictures hanging on the wall. There weren't too many, but he seemed to be pretty cheerful in all of them. Especially the ones with his dog. For some reason I hadn't seen it around. Nothing else caught my eye. Can you check the living room? It was the only room over. One room over. Surely he wouldn't mind. He said I should feel at home after all. Ah, twisting the words so you can snoop around, I see. Some very smart, clever tactic. The living room was minimalistic and unimpressive. A TV stood in the corner, gathering dust. His bookshelf was well maintained. On the other hand, I looked over the books. He seemed pretty interested in biology. Maybe he was a teacher, or even a researcher, just like myself. I love to chat with him about his field sometime, once I get out of this mess. I chose a random book without a cover and opened it. It seemed to be a handwritten notebook. I quickly shut it and to recheck the title. It seemed like I had pulled out a fantasy book instead of a biology text. Evolutionary development. Intersections between botany and zoology. That would be a rather weird name for a fantasy novel, but the depictions on the pages confirmed it being fictional. The pages showed drawings of creatures that I had never seen before, accompanied by detailed graphs and diagrams. I guess this could be one of those fake science art pieces, like what the Voynich manuscript is theorized to be. Yeah, something like that. I returned the book and went back out into the hall. Alright, it's all done. I jumped. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. No, it's fine. Good thing he didn't catch me snooping around. The phone should be working now. Feel free to give it a try. I'll give you some space. Call me when you're done. He took the bottle I had drunk from earlier and left through the hallway. I had an odd sense of deja vu. I shook it off and started dialing some numbers. They were the same that I already tried on May's mobile phone. Once again, they failed to connect. How could that be? I was 100% certain that they were correct. I tried all the numbers of friends, family, and even work colleagues I could think of, until finally... Yes, hello? It was a woman's voice that I didn't recognize. I was certain I had dialed the number from one of my work colleagues. Excuse me, isn't this Tom's telephone number? I don't know who that is. Are you another scam caller? Don't call me again. She hung up. Alright. Something was definitely wrong here. It might be best to talk to Frederick. and see if he could help me somehow. Maybe he had a clue as to how I could get back home. I crept down the hall. He went his this way, right? I began to hear some murmuring. A steady chill ran down my back. The sound was coming from the basement. Not another basement! It's all a trap! The old floorboards squealed beneath my toes. I saw flickers of a weak light coming from down the steps. I took them as gently as I could, and I held a hand over my mouth to quiet my breath. I reached the bottom and turned the corner. It was just like before. Frederick knelt before a big cage, a small lamp next to him, and held something up to the bars. He hissed to whatever was inside. Yes, yes, you have the scent now, don't you? We must take care of this one tonight. He's curious. He will find the secret much faster than the others. No, 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 we can't have him make something like you, too. It's kill or be killed in this town. My stomach dropped out from underneath me as I heard the horrible scraping from inside the cage. I took a step back, bumping into a wall. Before I could react, I had accidentally switched on the main light. A sudden flood of white blinded me for a moment. Once my eyes adjusted, the first thing I saw was it. Hell no. Frederick was screaming at me, but I could barely think about him. I couldn't look away from that creature. It was cowering inside a dirty cage that seemed to be too small for it. It had features of a human, but I could also see some elements that were distinctly dog-like. Its mouth was way too big, and the inside of it was filled with seemingly randomly set teeth, or at least something that resembled teeth. Worst of all, though, were the enormous eyes staring right back at me. Frederick fumbled with the lock on the cage. My feet finally began to move. I ran out of the house and into the streets. All the while, one thought was frantically running through my head. I had to get out. I had to get away from this demented town. With this thought clouding my mind, I had realized I had exited town already and was now in a big grassy plain. Breathing heavily, with the fear flooding my mind, I had almost not noticed how heavy my legs had become. Soon, I was struggling to stay on my feet, and my vision slowly darkened from exhaustion and panic. I wanted to look back and to see how close the monster was, but I was too afraid of seeing it right behind me. I gathered my courage and quickly glanced behind me, and to my surprise, the thing wasn't following me. I didn't know if it had ever followed me in the first place, but it seemed like Frederick wanted to send it after me, to kill me. Realizing that I was safer now, I stopped. My legs were numb, and I almost gave in, but I managed to keep standing. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. It couldn't be real. There was no way to explain what I had seen, and every inch of my body repulsed the idea of such a monster existing. But I had seen it with my own two eyes. I continued on at a slower pace, this time, and soon came to a small but quickly flowing river. It wasn't a good night to get my clothes wet, but it looked small enough for me to jump over with a running start. I wasn't the athletic type, but I managed to leap over the gap. Suddenly my feet staggered. A wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier. My breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my back. It was as if someone had stabbed me. My feet gave in. My vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. The monster, Frederick. before I could find out, my consciousness faded. This guy is really into passing out. This guy's really good at like, when it comes to passing out, this guy is like numero uno at passing out. Alright. So, oh, this is a demo. Usually you've been straight to the title screen, but since the goal of the demo is to gather some valuable feedback, I hope you won't mind if I bother you real quick. You can fill out the survey here. Okay, I'll fill that out later. Or at a later point by clicking the feedback point at the main menu, blah blah blah. You can also, of course, Alright, thank you for your time. Make sure to check out the other door if you haven't already. I will check out the other door, but in another episode. I hope you guys liked the first part of this adventure. I didn't know this was a demo, but it's a demo. So, there's a lot of content here for a demo. I think the other doors might be somewhat similar, but I am not sure. We're gonna figure it out in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.